Hi, my name is Lindsey Lamb. I'm a soon-to-be graduating senior of Bishop McNamara High School, and I'm an ambassador in Girl Scouts. Here is a short introduction of my Girl Scout award. My project is called MONSTER. It's an acronym for Mental, Observant, Need, Self-Care, Teach, Empathy, and Reflection. What it stands for, or the meaning, is mental, the issue or challenge that's causing stress. Observant, recognizing or being observant of your behavior and actions from what is causing you stress, sadness, frustration, etc. Need, thinking about the steps needed to take care of yourself and how to overcome the challenge you're facing in front of you. Self-care, practicing self-care methods to take care of your mental, emotional, and physical health. Teach, how can you advise others to take care of themselves, and what help or advice can you give out to them? Empathy, being empathetic with others when they are not okay, and being there for them. Reflection, reflecting in a positive mindset from things that have caused you stress, frustration, etc. And reflecting how much you can grow from the challenge you overcame. My project is a mental health and self-care podcast. There is 4 episodes to the podcast discussing topics related to mental health and self-care. The 4 topics that we'll be discussing is time management, recognizing negative talk, bottling up your feelings, and self-care and mental health days. People that are a part of each episode is Mr. Greer, who's a theology and psychology teacher at Bishop McNamara High School. He is also my project advisor for my Girl Scout project. Mrs. Yemofio, who is one of the Bishop McNamara High School senior counselors. Kendrid Briscoe, who is a soon-to-be graduating senior at Bishop McNamara High School. Anya Harris, who is another soon-to-be graduating senior at Bishop McNamara High School. And Jacke Alvarez, who is a soon-to-be graduating senior at Thurgood Marshall Academy. Before we jump right into the episode, here's a short prayer to start off with. Dear God, thank you for waking me up every day to be with my wonderful family, friends, teachers, and those that support me. I feel very grateful and blessed for everything. Thank you for giving me a heart to live, a body to express, and a mind to flow throughout. I hope to touch the hearts and minds of everyone with my Girl Scout project. I hope that they stay safe and blessed. Amen. Hi, my name is Lindsey Lamb. On my right here, I have Anya Harris.
Hi.
And on my left, I have Mr. Greer again.
How's it going?
And today we'll be talking about recognizing your own negative thoughts and mental health. To start off to the topic, we'll be talking about negative thoughts versus positive thinking, what negative thinking leads to, and positive self-talk, and how to build up on that skill of talking more positive.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So first, just when we get to this idea of negative thinking, what does it mean to both of you? How would we define negative thoughts?
Bad doubts. A lot of bad doubts that put you down and not help you in any shape, way, or form, but just negatively impact you a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the same as Lindsey. Like anything that's just like negative, like insulting yourself or anything like that.
Cool. And so how does that look different than, say, positive thinking or positive thoughts? What's sort of the difference there? I know it seems obvious, but just to sort of like clarify it.
I think the difference is like a positive thought would be like, I can do this, or I'm like, I have the ability to do this, and like a negative thought would be, I can't, or like, why should I even bother to try, or something like that.
Great. So what's sort of the impact that negative thinking can have on a person?
Mainly, I would say kind of really just put you down. Like it doesn't uplift you, and you're just staying in like a negative zone of just like negative emotions that you're keeping or thinking to yourself about. Come back to me. Go ahead.
Okay. Like negative thinking can really like just like stunt your development as a person. because it can stop you from trying new things or like continuing to do something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think those are all really good points. And a lot of these are sort of like those early stages of negative thoughts, right? When we have these negative thoughts about ourselves, it can make it hard for us to accomplish a goal or a task. Or it might make us think like, oh, well, I'm just not good at this, so why bother trying, right?
Mhm.
I think math is one of the areas this comes up all
Mhm.
the time. People are like, oh, I'm just bad at math. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you're not bad at math. You just have areas that you're still learning or that you need to grow in.
Yeah.
But those negative thoughts can lead you to thinking that, well, it's math, so I can't do it, and you give up before you even try. And then it can snowball from there, right? Negative thinking can lead to more significant problems. It can lead to depression, to anxiety, to chronic worry, obsessive compulsive disorder, all sorts of different potential psychological disorders. So yeah, I think that can be it's this can become this really big thing, but it starts usually really small.
Mhm.
So looking at yourselves, right? What are how have negative thoughts impacted you in your own lives?
Well, I think negative thinking, I think it really like stopped me from trying new things or really like developing really because I also think it gave myself a poor self image, and like I did not have a lot of confidence in myself, which would affect the way I interacted with other people. Um, so yeah.
I also say the same thing. I didn't have like a lot of confidence in myself, and it will like really affect my mindset on things, like with poor like just negative thinking when it comes to like stuff that happens. And what was the other thing?
I was gonna say, think about it. Think about that. Like, what are like some examples of like when negative thoughts would sort of pop in your head? Like, when are some times where those sorts of things start to fill your head?
They start to fill my head when something happens that really bothers me, and I just start to think really negative about, or I do something that wasn't really like nice or kind of me, and I get a really bad doubts about it. Nowadays I will apologize for it, of course, but just like in the heat of the moment, I would get a lot of bad doubts about what I did or what I said, and feel really bad and horrible. And in a way, it's like it helps me get to like reflect, like a reflection point about what I should do to make myself better,
Mhm.
or the next steps I need to take. But just having bad doubts overall, that when it gets really negative, it kind of like just takes over everything, and like you can change your whole mood in
Mm-hmm.
a way.
Yeah.
Um, I think like it can be as small as like making a little mistake. Like I noticed that a lot. If I do, if I like get a question wrong, or if I like make a little spelling mistake or say something wrong, uh, and like somebody corrects me or something, I do like start to kind of like really tear myself down and like kind of say things like, "Okay, you should have known this," or "You're stupid." So that's what happens.
Yeah, and this is something that I see all the time with students as well as with my athletes.
Mhm.
As a lacrosse coach, one of the things I see all the time, a player makes a mistake, right? They miss a pass, they drop the ball, and they become so upset about it that they start making other mistakes, right? It starts to snowball, right? I think that's one of the things that these negative thoughts tend to do, right? We do one little thing wrong, and we start thinking, right, like you said, like, oh, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, like I don't know enough, I didn't work hard enough, right? We start laying out all of these things that really aren't true, right? They're just these thoughts that are in our head that are there to limit what we're capable of, right? And they start to snowball, right? And after that, right, you start telling yourself you're not smart enough, you start making other mistakes. You pay less attention because you start thinking, well, I don't have control over this. Um, And so I think that that becomes one of those big things for high school age students, especially, but for all of us. I mean, as a high school teacher, as a coach, as a parent, I still have all of these sorts of negative thoughts that will come into my head at times, right? Um, I get really uncomfortable when I have to stand up in front of a group of people because I'm not confident in the way my voice sounds, and I start to sort of downgrade myself and compare myself to others, right? And so all of those things can lead us to these negative self thoughts, or self talk, that can be negative.
It can also like get really really bad when it like really overcomes yourself. It makes sense. Like when it gets a lot to like just even think about, and you're just sitting there and just like meh, like you don't want to do anything to like become better, or just want to sit there in the darkness alone with those doubts.
Yeah, it can lead to what we call in psychology learned helplessness. This idea that we just keep getting it wrong, so why even bother, right? We're that dog that just like curls up and gives up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ah, well, everything I seem to do is wrong, so I'm just wrong. I'm bad. Um, instead of seeing opportunities for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's the other side of this, right? Is the positive self talk. Um, so, how do you find ways to speak more positively to yourselves?
I think you should definitely like list off good things about yourself or things you like about yourself, and try to like recognize like like the mini accomplishments you do throughout the day, uh, and really just trying to like cancel out those negative thoughts instead of being like if you get something wrong, instead of being like I'm stupid, you can be like okay, there's something I need to prepare more for or something.
Yeah, so looking at things as an opportunity for growth,
Yes.
right? Really practicing a growth mindset. Um, Again, another one of those big pop psychology terms right now, growth mindset. But this idea that it's not so much that we're deficient, it's that we have an opportunity to grow, and we can recognize that, right? We can see it as I don't know it yet, but I'm going to, or I'm not good at it yet, but I can be, and really sort of establishing it that way. I think that can be a really valuable approach.
Um, wait a minute.
So, in thinking about like these
Oh wait, no,
ways,
I
you
got it.
got okay, yeah, go.
For me, I would say journaling again, but mainly like looking up journal prompts about confidence, or like stuff, something like I'm struggling about myself that I want to work on. I'm just answering answering questions about confidence and how to build my confidence, or let's say how to be, or how to love myself more. Just journal prompts like that I will answer, and that will also help me learn to appreciate myself more for who I am, and to kind of like cancel those bad doubts out, if that makes sense. Um,
With those journal prompts, those things that you find online, do you have like an app that you
I
use,
use
or
Pinterest, and Pinterest a really is a really good source to find anything really. So I would recommend. I mean, you can also use Google, but Pinterest is my main source of finding things for inspiration, or for journal prompts, or journaling, or self love care.
awesome?
So,
Maybe we can drop some of those in our resources, so people have access to them.
hmm
Awesome. Definitely a great call.
I
And
actually have like a Pinterest board of like self love and confidence, so I could also link that down
perfect.
in
Love
the
it.
description.
So yeah, I think journaling is a great way to go. It really does give you that opportunity to be reflective on yourself,
hmm
um, while taking some other words and really trying to internalize them.
Mhm.
And I think that's the important thing here, right? We become almost too get good at internalizing those negative thoughts. And so it's finding those ways to combat it, and be like, okay, negative thoughts are here. What resources do I have? What can I use to make me feel better?
Another way you another idea you could do is, I used to do this back in freshman year and sophomore year. I didn't do it junior year because pandemic, or senior year. But freshman year, when I was having bad doubts, I thought the idea of like writing quotes I found on Pinterest and putting them on my locker.
Yep.
So that way, every time I open my locker, I would just see a bunch of sticky notes. Some of them were like random words, which is fine because I was just looking at them to make me laugh. But the other stuff would just be like, "Oh, carpe diem, seize the day," which is one of my favorite quotes, or um, "Don't be scared," and like stuff like that. And that found it really helpful for me back then to like encourage myself in a way
Mm-hmm.
that I can do this and I'm not alone, even though like bottling up my feelings were still kind of in effect. It's still like we're a way to counteract the bad doubts from time to time.
Yeah, I love the sticky note approach, right? I mean, it's one of those things you can do it, like you said, in your locker. You can have them on a mirror in your room. Um, have them right there when you wake up. You can see them on the wall, like wherever you're going to see them. I think that's really helpful, right? It can be affirmations. It can be goals that you have. It can be traits that you see in yourself, but sometimes struggle to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. With my lacrosse team, we do a slogan on the back of our warm up t shirts. And a couple of years ago, the one we used was "Be brave, make mistakes." Because we had gotten to this point where we were being just sort of really negative toward ourselves and toward our teammates when we would make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But mistakes, they're normal. Like everyone's going to make them. We're going to drop balls. We're going to do poorly on a quiz. Like those things happen. Um, Making mistakes is normal, but it's brave to be comfortable and confident and work through them. And I think like there's this weird idea about being brave, that to be brave or courageous is something you have to do or something you do when things are easy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, being brave and courageous is something that happens when things are tough. It's when you make those mistakes. How do you respond? And so I love the sticky note thing because you can write yourself any number of positive things and it becomes that visual.
Also, I want to mention, side note, I wanted to say like it is normal to get bad doubts. We're not saying no, don't have bad doubts. It's bad for you. Like no, it of course bad doubts is bad because they're negative, but it is normal to get bad doubts from time to time. But the main focus of this episode is just finding ways to uplift yourself, like how to put yourself back together so you can keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think really important one. Yeah, and that's I think we all can identify with that and still having those, but really sort of building these up. Anya, how do you go about trying to build up these positive thoughts for yourself?
So I think it just like once you like know what to look for and recognize when you're having like a bad thought, I usually just try to like either like reform the thought or just like clear it out entirely. Like if I make a mistake, I either try to like not think about like that I made a mistake or think about like ways that I could um fix or like develop or grow from the mistake or like what I could do in the future. So I think it's also just like not focusing on the past as much. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Um, I think one of the things that can be really interesting about this is there are things that sort of serve as triggers for these negative thoughts. Have you had this experience where certain things that you do or read or hear can trigger these negative thoughts? And how do you prepare or deal with that?
I'm sure I've had the experience. I don't think any specific one can come to my head, but I think it does like hearing it more and like that kind of the desensitization of it kind of like works is like if you just like get used to hearing it, like the effect can lessen, but you also have to like mix in the positive thinking with that.
Say, well, you're thinking it's one of those things I see with math students all the time, right? This idea like, oh, I have to go take a math test. This is going to be a struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it. I'm not good at it, right? And before you even get in there, before you've seen the test, you've already started to convince yourself that it's going to be a failure.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we start prepping ourselves maybe with that positive talk ahead of time?
I would say kind of try to clear your mind from what negative thoughts you're thinking about, and like try to think about who you are as a person and why, what are the good things about you, and why, um in what ways can you counteract the negative bad doubts and try to turn them into positive ones. Or you could either work on them if like bad habits, like you get bad doubts from your bad habits, like what you can work on to change on.
Yeah, so flipping those negative thoughts into those areas of growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Switching that mindset from that negative mindset into something that's a little bit more positive. I think that's awesome. Absolutely. So, if you were working with your 10-year-old self, right? My favorite question. I got my 10-year-old daughter, right? She's got to work herself through these. So if you had a 10-year-old, or your 10-year-old self, how would you tell them to work through their negative thoughts?
I would say one that like like thinking negatively and talking bad about yourself isn't quirky, because I was definitely growing up in like the era where like people would just like always say how like gross they were or how unhealthy they were, and not really like, and like I guess do it as a way of like almost um trying to like change the blame or like have an excuse not to work on it. So I would be like, it's not like really like cute to think that way about yourself, and like you should definitely be like working on bettering yourself. But also I would also just say like, also don't like focus too much on if you have uh bad thoughts, and like don't like freak out about it. um and definitely just like just try to like either distract yourself with something else or think more positively.
For me, the main first thing I would say to my 10-year-old self, everything will be okay in the end. I'm living to this new mindset or idea of mine for a good few, I guess 2 months, because I thought about it on Kairos and
Mhm.
I was preaching it in my small groups and stuff. And I'm still living it to this day, that everything will be okay in the end. No matter what happens, you'll be okay. Um, I also say to also distract myself from bad doubts and do something that makes me happy. And also, whenever you're not okay, go to my mom, because I know she can always cheer me up with a laugh or teasing me about something stupid.
Yeah, I think that's a really important part of this, right? Mental health isn't a solo journey. Well, it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of the time, I think we try to just like push through. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be fine. But people can be there for the journey to support you. So thinking about that, again, you're both high school seniors. You have all sorts of friendships, relationships that you deal with. So how have you been able to help your friends, your classmates, maybe even relatives to deal with negative thinking, or to deal with this process of moving from thinking negatively to thinking positively?
um I think the way that I've been doing it is offering like compliments and reassurances. It's just like little things every now and then. Like if you're doing something, it's like, oh, that's really good, or it's like you did something here like really well. So I think um, having like that outside approval too or validation definitely helps.
Yeah, I love the idea of giving compliments. And especially like the more specific we are with our
Mm-hmm.
compliments, right? The more someone can feel seen and heard and valued. And that's, I think that's really important, right? We can tell kids all we want, like, oh, it doesn't matter what everyone
Mm-hmm.
else thinks; it's what you think. Well, if we keep saying that over and over, and they have all these negative thoughts in their head, we're actually pushing
Yeah.
them in a really negative way. So being able to give that outside validation to friends, to classmates, to students is really valuable. So I really appreciate that approach. What about you, Lindsay? What can
For
you what do you do?
me, it's a lot of positive encouragement. So again, like with Anya, with complimenting, but also just being there for them and like not like necessarily proving them wrong, but like telling like, hey, you're not this type of person, and then say X, Y, and Z on why you're not. You know, it's a lot of like positive encouragement, I would say, that I would do, and just being there for them, and always ask if you want a hug, and I'll give them a hug forever long, and then ask if you're okay a lot, reassuring them that you can do this, you got this, like you're not alone. It may feel alone a lot of the times when going through these bad doubts, but whether you talk it out with someone or throughout your journey of meeting new people and asking for help, it won't feel alone when you reach out. You know, like you are supported and loved with whoever you meet or have a friendship or relationship with that's really good. And I would say that just believe in yourself more and try to focus on the positives in life and just really take it one step at a time, because you will be okay in the end. Everything's going to be okay.
Good. Yeah. And that's, I really appreciated how you pointed out that when they come and they're sharing these negative self-thoughts that they're experiencing, that you're like, oh no, look, here are these examples of when that wasn't true. Right. Again, helping them to feel seen by showing like, oh no, I've seen you do these things. You're not this bad person that you think you are, right? Or you're not bad at math. You've explained these 3 different concepts to me to help me understand it, right? That's really powerful. Again, it helps them to see those strengths that they might not even be aware of. And so I think that's really important. When we're thinking about this idea of negative thinking and being able to work with friends or family members, for me, it really brings to mind this idea of empathy. Um, we can define empathy as understanding another person's experience by imagining oneself in that other person's situation. It's different from sympathy, right? We're pretty good at being sympathetic as humans, like, oh, I feel bad for you. Like, and that's really valuable. But empathy is actually being able to understand that person's experience, not from our own experiences, but through their experience, right? Trying to understand it through their eyes or through walking in their shoes. How can empathy allow us to help others with these negative thoughts, or maybe even ourselves?
For me, another thing is like when it comes to like empathizing with others, like of course you have to understand in order to empathize, but also try not to have it be a judgment zone where you're picking out every little thing they did wrong.
Mhm.
You know, you want to keep those opinions to yourself and just be there for them in that moment. And when they're ready to like grow and work on what they need to work on for themselves, then you can tell them one step at a time, like, hey, I know this is my opinion, but I think this is something that you should notice about yourself and what you can work on to help become better as a person, not point it out when they're at their lowest. Like you want to be able to like be there for them and reassure them and like, hey, it's okay, it's okay. Like not nitpick and be mean and nasty.
Yeah, so really being able to do that job of accompaniment and walking with them through that process.
And also understanding what they're going through.
Yeah, without making it centered on you.
Mhm.
That's, I really appreciate it. Like, okay, I'm not going to tell them like, here's ways to get better, because they're not ready for it, right? And so you're not being like, all right, let me center myself and be like, I'm the friend that's here to fix it. But really sort of letting them lead the way, and you just sort of going with them and waiting for them to be ready for that moment.
And also you cannot don't rush their process either, because you
Yeah.
you want them to like kind of learn on their own, but also you can still be there for them. Don't rush them like, let's talk it out, let's talk like no, let's take it slow and let them slowly open up about what they want to talk about, or like like what's bothering them, and then you can take it from there or continue helping them from there.
Yeah, awesome, good. Anya?
same as like what Lindsay said, like it is very much like letting them lead the way and like not trying to like think about like how I would do like what I would want in this situation. Definitely like try your best to come at it from their point of view, but like also like make sure that you ask them too, because like you can't know everything that's going on in somebody else's head. So definitely like just be there to be like, I'm here if you need anything, but I'm not gonna like overstep my bounds.
It's also respecting their boundaries
Yeah.
that they have, and also communication. So you want to communicate a lot with the person when it comes to empathizing with them, because again, you're not going to know what they're thinking about. You're not a mind reader. But try not to like ask questions too much to where they don't want to like speak up or open up. So I would just say just ask one question at a time, or ask questions that they're comfortable with.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's a really good point too, because I think a lot of the times when we think about communication, we think about the talking piece. And I think what you're really emphasizing here is the listening piece. That's a huge part of communication. We can't be sitting here thinking like, what's the next question that I'm going to ask if we're truly listening, right? So it might take us a moment or two to have that next question. But again, it's really valuable, right? That person is feeling heard and feeling valued. And I think that's really important. So this is the point in our episode where we take a little bit of time to reflect. So thinking about sort of where you've been in the past when it comes to recognizing your own negative thoughts, where you are right now, and where you hope to be in the next few years, and sort of sharing your experience.
I can go first.
Oh yeah, you go first.
I'll let you think. Where I was, I let a lot of bad doubts overcome my mindset and made it into a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
I know my terms.
There you go.
I remember that back in freshman year, Mr. Hines with the freshman gateway. But I let them overcome me a lot at my lowest, especially when it came to bottling up my feelings. The bad doubts were the another core of part of that. But where I am now is a great spot. I love myself more. I feel more confident in myself. I'm still on going on. I'm still on an ongoing journey. It's never going to stop because of yeah, it's never going to stop. But what I hope to be is to find more ways to help others um, through their bad doubts, with empathizing with how, like, with what I listed, but also other ways that I can help myself and just continue growing more as a person.
Good. Before we move on to Anya, I just want to sort of follow up here. So, Lindsay, I've known you since freshman year, and I've had the privilege of teaching you multiple times, dating back to freshman year. So, in thinking about like these ideas of negative thoughts and positive talk, freshman year, Lindsay, would freshman year Lindsay have been doing this podcast?
No.
Why not?
Because at the time she was bottling up her feelings a lot and having a lot of bad thoughts about herself. She didn't feel confident. She didn't love herself. She didn't like how she felt like everything that she did or thought she was doing was wrong and would either impact people in a negative way, and felt like her decision making was bad, or just she felt like the stuff that she was doing was wrong.
Yet here we are 4 years through in high school, and you're running this series of podcasts, and you're graduating high school, getting ready to go off to college, right? What are these changes? Like what changed for you?
A lot, honestly. I mean, you can, I don't know what, everyone has like a different story in high school. It's like I didn't know Anya until like freshman year. I mean, like, of course, it's freshman year. But like, we didn't start talking a lot more like until sophomore or
like the late sophomore.
yeah, and it's just it's been like a really long journey for me, or I guess for everyone with whatever you're going through. It's a really a long journey, and you're still on an ongoing long journey, and it's never gonna stop. So it's like you're always continuously growing and going through stuff, and also learning stuff. And for me, it's like one of the biggest things is like I was able to like over time, or I was I reached out for help and I got a lot of advice. I started to open up more, ask for more help, open up more, talked out about my feelings more, and it's just here. So
As I say, and that's a testimony to your courageous actions there, to seek that help and to ask people to support you, and then that support network that you have, right? And that there were all of these people who were willing to step up and support you throughout that process. Um, and that's the beauty, right? It's not a solo journey. You got here with all sorts of support, and that's what makes all of this so fun. That's why I love teaching high school, because you go from these experiences as freshmen where these things aren't even on your radar, and you're graduating as a senior, and you're like, "Yep, I'm doing a podcast," right? So that's awesome.
it's also like along the journey, it wasn't easy coming out to people about certain stuff and just like going to those that you trust and everything about like, hey, I need help, or even like you know, like talking to a counselor, like it can really help. I don't talk to counselors, but I mainly talk to my family and friends, and they've been along for the journey the longest. So
Yeah, and finding whoever that support network for you is really valuable. Whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's a school counselor, or teacher, or certified counselor, like, all of those are great options, and it's a matter of finding the ones that work for you. And you've clearly done that, and done it really well. Um, Anya, sort of reflecting on your experiences, where you've been, where you are right now, and where you want to be.
Uh, so where I was, um, definitely like in middle school, I think is like when I like noticed it a lot. Is like definitely a lot of like negative self talk, um, and like a lot of like using humor as a way to kind of like joke about it, but like not really, because like if you do it consistently, like it is gonna start to affect you. And so I think like what happened was it got so uh, like ingrained in my head that I didn't really notice it. Um, but yeah, then I started like um, realizing like this isn't healthy to think this way. And so I definitely like talked more to my friends and my family, but mostly my friends uh, about uh, just like the negative self talk I've been having. Um, and then like they like offer me compliments and reassurance a lot. So I definitely think like once I started to think about it, I was like, oh, wait, I am really good at this. Or it's like, yeah, I'm like fine. Um, and so I guess where I am right now is actually like pretty good. I'm definitely like finding it easier to cancel out negative thoughts and replace them with positive ones. And where I want to be is I'm not going to say that I'm not ever going to have like negative thoughts or doubts, but I guess I want to be in a place where I can like manage them so like they don't spiral into something worse.
Mhm.
And yeah,
No, and I think that becomes the goal for most of us, right?
yeah.
This idea that, like, they're not going to go away, but we
Mhm.
can control them. We can limit their impacts
Yes.
for us, and we can really display that confidence. Um, and that confidence goes a long way to helping us be more positive in our thoughts. So this is the point in the episode where we really want you all to be able to take the opportunity to think about your own experience, your experiences with negative thoughts, where you've been, what you're working on, how you're trying to shift to more positive thinking. Maybe it's around a certain topic, maybe it's a struggle you have in a certain area, but that's hopefully you've heard something today that's going to give you a different way of practicing positive self-talk. Maybe a way that you can interact differently with your friends or your family that will allow you to grow as well. So Lindsey, start turning it over to you.
All right. This is our end of the episode. Thank you, audience, for tuning in to watch. Thank you, Anya, for being a part of this episode. Thank you, Mr. Greer.
Absolutely.
And in our next episode, we'll be discussing bottling up your feelings, why it's bad, and how to overcome it and tackle the issue. Thank you.
Bye. If you or someone you know may be struggling with self-harm or suicidal thoughts, you can call the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 8255. Again, that number is 1-800-273-TALK. 8255. Anytime, day or night. Or you can reach out via text to the crisis text line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for confidential support via text message for any person in crisis when you text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. Again, that's HOME, HOME, to 741-741.